you and EPLF said that you will guarantee the freedom of speech, freedom of press, and democratic elections. So, after what you now said, how will you adapt it into your society right now?
No one is prevented from freedom of speech. What is freedom of speech? You have to actively engage in the political life of the country. You have to participate in the decision-making process this way or that way. You can have the Greek example of citizens coming and deciding, or you can go to the Middle Age where you have a form of expression. You can talk about the 20th century, that's a form of expression. Now we are back again to a slavery of the majority, where the majority are not allowed even to express their views, and all media and all technology is controlled by a very small minority everywhere, where we need to fight for the freedom of populations and freedom of speech everywhere. And this is not done on an individual basis, it's done on a national basis, and that's what we are doing.
Yeah. Can you say that you will have conduct election like the European model?
We're not going for elections anytime like the European model, not at all.
So how will you
We have our own ways of allowing participation, and it's not an option. I mean, I would like to suggest to European governments who think they are democratic when they are not democratic at all, go and change the situation in Saudi. Tell the Saudis to go for elections, okay? If you can do that, I will applaud you and say, oh, you've done a very good job and a success story, and then we will learn from that as a lesson.
So how do you define democracy?
Well, democracy is the rule of the majority. There is no rule of the majority. In Europe, the United States, if you're talking about the majority, that does no more exist in Europe.
So besides elections, how can you know the rule of the majority?
I can tell you one thing. I can tell you one thing. It's elections that were in Washington, I mean in the United States, when Gore and Bush went for elections for presidency. Only 40% of the electorate, not of the population, only 40% participated, meaning 60% did not participate. You have the statistics in Europe. You go from Sweden to Austria to Luxembourg to Spain to Italy to France to Germany. The participation of the citizens, the eligible electorate, has gone from 16% to maximum 27%. Poland and other Eastern European countries could be mentioned there. No majority participate in elections. And still these countries would claim to have democracies or participatory elections. No one is participating in these elections, especially these days. People are fed up of the politics that has become a politics of a minority and special interest groups controlling everything. And Europe has ceased to have democracies in spite of the pretensions that we have every day. And when it comes to other countries in Europe, the Middle East, I would ask very simple questions. Why don't you ask the King of Morocco to go for devolving the monarchy there? Why don't you go and ask the King of Jordan to go and devolve the monarchy there? Why don't you do it in Kuwait? Why don't you do it in Saudi? Why are you pushing it when you don't have democracies in your own countries and trying to intimidate people by taking the monopoly of first and foremost explaining democracy and trying to impose it upon others? When you don't even have democracy, you don't even have the basics of the culture of democracy. It's grabbing the resources of others, it's robbing the resources of others, it's killing people, it's intimidating people. And still again, you can talk about democracy. Those who believe or think that there is democracy in Western Europe and the United States are pretenders only, to me at least. And when you talk about democracy in any society, our societies need democracy more than anyone in Europe or the United States, because we need to create an environment where the benefits of every activity in society is harvested by the majority, not by 1%, 2%, or 5% of the population. And we're working hard to guarantee that for the majority of the population. So you may think, elections. Now, 80% of the population lives below the poverty line, and you tell these people they are living in democracy. Elections were held in India a week ago, and probably days ago, and you have 150 million Indians deprived of citizenship. They are untouchables. It's the worst slavery you can ever imagine on earth. And people talk about the biggest democracy on earth when India has 150 million people suffering because they are not even second class, they are slaves. What does democracy mean to them? They may have elected a lady to participate in their name. Is that democracy? Is that elections? It's one way of cheating people, telling them to put their vote on a ballot box and say, oh, this is the epitome of democracy. Go everywhere in Africa, Asia, and many other places. This has become a way of cheating people, boiling down everything to the ballot box. I mean, what does a ballot box mean to a hungry man? What does a ballot box mean to a slave? What does a ballot box mean to someone who doesn't even have the citizenship required for equality? Freedom means equality and freedom. I mean, democracy is freedom and equality, equal opportunities. You don't have equal opportunities in a country, and the opportunity is in the hands of a small minority, no more than 2-3% of the population. How can you possibly make it compatible for democracy to, at the same time, allow for 2% of the population to have all the opportunity, while 98% don't have the opportunity? Equal opportunities is a measure for equality in society, and this is nowhere. And I don't think it's late for Europeans to ask very simple questions about what they mean by democracy. And I think it's on us, on our case, it's very simple and clear, and we do not want to follow pretentious assumptions about democracy. And I would like to say again, repeat it again, and for many governments who think they have democracies and want to sell democracies, they go and find a good market for that in many places I mentioned earlier.
But even though the critics towards Eritrea is quite tough, they compare you right now in the Swedish media with North Korea, dictatorship, etc. What is your answer?
It's again, who is saying this is the question, because it's been an obsession for the CIA and CIA agents who have all the websites. They are bombarding people with disinformation about so many things. I mean, they may at will compare a reality here with any other reality. Why are they doing it, and what do they mean by what they are saying? It's you can't tell me who is the source of this accusation. For example, who's saying it? Who says it, and you know better?
No, I just read it in media.
It's the media. The media, who is controlling the media? You have more than 200, 300 websites for the CIA operating and focusing on Eritrea.
I think, to be honest, I think it can be, if people see a country without elections, a journalist in prison without trial, they can do that kind of conclusions quite easy, I think.
Why don't they do it on Saudi, for example? A very simple question. Why don't you do it on Kuwait?